Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of Guess Where They Got In with Admissionado. We are a premier admissions consulting and counseling company, and we're super excited to be partnering with GMAT Club on this video series. My name is Doris. I'm a senior consultant with Admissionado, specializing in MBA applications. A little bit about myself: I have a bachelor's degree in political science from Harvard, a master's degree in Latin American studies from Oxford, and an MBA from Wharton. One of my favorite things to do is to apply everything that I've learned in my educational journey to help clients achieve their own dreams and goals. That's one of the coolest things that we get to do. So today we have for you the story of an actual client that we've worked with in the past. We're going to call her Cecile here, but we have changed some of her biographical details to protect her privacy. Before we actually dive into Cecile's story, let's just pause for a second and ask ourselves, why are we watching this video? Two reasons I can give you. Number one, I'm guessing you want to find out where she got in if you read about her profile stats on GMAT Club. Reason number two, however, and this one's an important one, we chose Cecile's case because we genuinely believe that there's some important lessons that it illustrates about MBA admissions in general. So even if you don't identify with Cecile's personal background or her professional background, we still think you can take away a couple of really interesting new insights in MBA admissions that can help you regardless of who you are. So let's dive in. Cecile came to us as a reapplicant. She had previously worked in an earlier year with a different admissions consultant and hadn't liked her results. At the time that she came to us, she was a 28-year-old Asian American female with a 710 GMAT score. She had a 3.6 GPA in economics and English from Williams College. And in terms of work experience, she started off working at her family's textile company for the first year and a half following college. Then she transitioned into a marketing role at a luxury conglomerate where she stayed for 2 years. After that, she stayed in the marketing field but decided to switch sectors to banking at Goldman Sachs. She's been there for the last 2.5 years and had been promoted twice during this time, which is super impressive. Beyond her work life, Cecile was super involved in her Asian American business community in California, doing mentoring, doing ESL tax prep. So somebody who clearly cared about the world that she came from and wanted to give back. So what happened the first time that Cecile applied to business school? She put in 3 very rushed applications in round 2, again with the help of a different admissions consultant, and unfortunately she was rejected everywhere: HBS, Wharton, and Stern. When Cecile came to us at Admissionado, we started by doing a post-mortem of her first application attempt. There are a few things that we identified that were problematic. First and foremost, she stated that her post-MBA career goals were in management consulting. So she said she wanted to work at McKinsey, Bain, or BCG, the famous MBB, the 3 big firms of consulting. But this was a bit of a head-scratcher because it wasn't really clear from her application, from her resume, from her training, her education, that consulting was something that she even wanted to do or would be suited to do. So this was a bit of a puzzle for the AdCom, or admissions committee. Second, related to this, she didn't even mention the family business that her grandfather had started, this textile company where she had began her own career after college. This is also a bit of a problem because this family business actually was a huge influence in shaping Cecile's interest in her career choices, but she felt like it wasn't big time enough, so she left it out of her application the first time around. These 2 things, paired with a slightly lower GMAT score for her Asian American demographic, probably were the nail in her coffin. 710 is a decent score, but when you come from a demographic that's as academically competitive as the Asian American demographic, it's hard to stand out. What we've done here is created a framework to help you understand how the AdCom looks at an application. What they're really looking for is evidence of future success in every applicant that they evaluate. So your job is to provide that evidence in spades. Let's look at 3 different criteria that the AdCom used to evaluate this, and let's see how Cecile's first application attempt stacks up. The first criterion is, do this person's future career goals make sense, and are they connected to her previous experience? In this department, unfortunately, Cecile's first application attempt was pretty weak. There wasn't a lot of evidence in her background as to why she would be interested in management consulting, or even whether she would have the skills or the experience to contribute to an MBB firm. So this was a problem. Second criterion, does the applicant have a track record of previous success that indicates that this person is going to have a successful career in the future? Here, clearly Cecile was a strong applicant overall. She's strong academically, had clearly had some very powerful professional experience early in her career, but again, it wasn't really obvious how those successes would translate directly into a career in management consulting. There's general success, but does that mean that you're going to be really, really outstanding at what you say you want to do after business school? Third and finally, the AdCom is looking to see whether the applicant is motivated by true enthusiasm, real passion for what they say they want to do, or if it's more likely they're motivated by a job title or by pay. Here, again, Cecile's first application attempt was unfortunately on the weaker side. There was no indication that she would be truly passionate about consulting for Fortune 500 companies, who are the likeliest clients for MBB firms. This also caused us to pause because when we read her application, it felt lifeless, it felt somewhat boring and somewhat staid, which was such a juxtaposition to her personality. When we got to know Cecile, when working with her, we realized she's a firecracker in real life, and we weren't seeing any of that energy translating into her application. So we knew right away that her essays would have to bring through that personality. So once we got on board, we set out to create a whole new strategy for Cecile in her second application attempt. We refocused on what made her truly unique, rather than focusing on what she thought the AdCom wanted to hear. Front and center, Cecile's real career passion was going to be in retail. This had a lot to do with her family's business in fashion. She personally was very interested in fashion, and it also showed in her career experience prior to business school, having worked at the places where she worked and having gained the marketing skill sets that she had accumulated. This allowed us also to put her family business front and center in her application. All of a sudden, her career arc makes sense, and when we say career arc, we mean do the dots connect in a logical way between what you've done before business school, your reason for going to business school and getting the MBA, and what you say you want to do after you graduate from business school, whether it's in the short term or the long term, 15, 20 years down the line. When we changed Cecile's career goal to now reflect her true passion for retail, these pieces all fell into place. Related to this, we also helped Cecile do some school-specific research on family business clubs, retail clubs, and also charity fashion events, extracurriculars, that were aligned with her interests. And the great thing about this is it, number one, demonstrates her interest in that particular school, but number two, it also shows the AdCom how you can contribute directly to that community, what you can bring to the table. This is extremely important. Finally, we also helped Cecile expand her target school list. So in addition to HBS, Wharton, and Stern, which she had applied to previously, we added several more schools: Booth, INSEAD, Yale, Columbia Business School, in order to increase her chances of getting in to a school that she'd be really excited about. But this also allowed us to refocus on schools that had a strong retail program or a strong retail alumni network, and that also had GMAT score ranges that were a little bit more forgiving. So let's bring back that framework from a previous slide and put ourselves in the AdCom shoes again, this time using the same criteria, but evaluating Cecile's second application attempt against these exact same guidelines. First criterion, do her future career goals make sense now? Yes, this is now super strong and it's coming through clearly. She is somebody who comes from this family business in the fashion industry. She had built up a lot of marketing experience in different sectors prior to applying to business school, and she was positioning herself very well for luxury and retail leadership development programs that are run by companies like Nordstrom or LVMH that recruit MBAs. So this all of a sudden made a ton of sense. In addition, her track record of past success. Once again, not only does she look strong overall on paper, but we can also see specifically how her past experience is going to translate into her future career in the retail, luxury, and fashion space. Maybe even leading her family business into the third generation. That's a really obvious path she could choose to go down. Finally, is she motivated by true passion? Yes, this time, as opposed to her first application attempt, it came through loud and clear that she was somebody who's had a lifelong and consistent interest in the fashion industry, so much so that she wanted to contribute, again, not just academically or professionally to this community in business school, but also in her extracurriculars and student clubs. So you see, we took her application from being weak in most departments to being truly outstanding and making Cecile out to be a terrific bet for the AdCom to take on. The results spoke for themselves. This time, Cecile was invited to interview at 4 of the schools that she applied to: INSEAD, NYU Stern, Chicago Booth, and Wharton. And not only did she get interviews at all 4 of these institutions, she also was finally admitted to all 4. And this is a testament to the great deal of effort and time that she put into her interview preparation. That's a subject for another day, but we do want to just say here that in addition to the STAR framework, situation, task, action, and result, that you may have heard about before from the internet or other consultants, it's an interview preparation framework. In addition to that, we also spent a lot of time with Cecile working on what we call her greatest hits. This is one of our most important approaches to MBA admissions consulting. By greatest hits, think of a song artist. We're talking about your best stories, whether it's from school, whether it's from your community, whether it's from your jobs that you've worked in the past. These are the stories that tell the most about your character, your leadership potential, and about the impact that you have on the people and the companies around you. And the strategy here is, whether it's in your essays or in your interviews, you want to make sure those greatest hits are shining through, regardless of what school you're applying to and regardless of what interview question you're asked. So we spent a lot of time with Cecile working on her greatest hits, coming at them from different angles, so that no matter what question came up in her interviews, she was prepared to respond with one of her greatest hits stories. Before we wrap up here, I just want to take a quick time out and do a bit of a straw poll. We, as I mentioned before at the beginning of the video, want to make sure you walk away from this not just knowing where Cecile got into business school, but also with a couple of insights about MBA admissions that are going to serve you well. So if you pause for a second and reflect, I want to ask you, what do you think the moral of this story is? Here's what we suggest. We think there's 2 conclusions that one could draw from Cecile's results that are very tempting. They seem very sensible on the face of it, but in reality, they reflect myths. Tempting conclusion number 1: if I don't have previous experience in the career that I want to pursue after business school, I'm doomed. So in other words, if I want to be a career changer with business school, I can't talk about it in my essays, because the AdCom is going to think, why would this person be good at this job if they've never done it before? That's actually not true. AdComs know that every year, hundreds of top MBA students end up switching careers, switching industries. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, they encourage it. But the trick is, you have to connect the dots between what you've done in your past, why you need to go to business school, how that degree is going to help you, and what you want to do in the future. If the AdCom can't see any sort of thread connecting those dots, then you're in trouble. But if you can make a compelling argument for how the experiences and skills that you've already gained, once honed by business school, will put you in a great position to lead in this new field, now you're talking. Tempting conclusion number 2. It's all about spin. Fundamentals of my profile don't actually matter. You could argue this with Cecile, because she's somebody whose profile didn't really change between application attempt number 1 and application attempt number 2. It was all about framing in her case. But we're going to poke a big hole in this too. We also don't think this is true at all. Your fundamentals, your test scores, your undergraduate performance, your resume, these do matter. Of course they matter. But only when they fit into a larger picture that makes sense, that paint the story of why you're going to be a success. So you need to have these 2 components. The profile elements are very important, but it's also, how do you put those profile elements together in a representation of you that makes the AdCom say, wow, that is somebody that we want at our school. I just want to note here too that one of the reasons we chose Cecile's case for this video is it's a very rare example where there's a magical built-in A/B test, or in other words, a control for an experiment, where again, the person is the same. From year 1 to year 2, her fundamentals didn't really change, and yet she ended up with dramatically different results in the second attempt. So, like I said, this is rare. Here, we can actually be more confident than we usually are, that we know that the framing was indeed what helped Cecile get over the finish line in the second round of applications. But we want you to be aware of drawing these black and white conclusions about application results based on most of the cases you're going to see, because you really cannot boil down the very complex and human process of MBA admissions to a simple formula. Watch out for anyone who says that you can. That brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you got a lot out of this. Please check out our other videos with GMAT Club for other juicy insights, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks so much.